Okay, for people joining our live stream, this is a discussion about some aspects of our new database integration framework. So, what are we talking about here?
Relations.
Okay.
So it's actually, relations sound complicated, but on the surface, they're very simple.
But wait a second. So, with respect to the other stuff we've talked about, this is a new and different thing that we have not discussed. Is that correct?
We have seen it, but we've not discussed it in detail.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, in the surface, this is very simple because relations are just basically entity-valued properties.
Entity-valued properties. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Or entity class-valued property.
Okay.
And the problem is really when you're looking at a SQL database, they don't really have this. They can't store expressions, so they can't store entities, but they have a concept that maps quite closely. That's the concept of foreign key.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So following that property using entity value. So okay. So what are you trying to do here?
So basically, this is the lazy representation. And if you try to evaluate entity value New Haven people born in city, you will get a list of, 100. I tried it and then I gave up after a while because it was taking long.
Well, but why is that? That's because maybe we should try it with a smaller city. Okay. I don't know why that gave a date as well for that property, but that doesn't really matter. But okay, so that works.
Yeah.
So you're saying here, and so this would have to go entity list.
Yeah.
Okay.
But by saying that you go into the list, you're giving a pretty opinionated version of what the person should do with it. Because maybe you don't care about what the entity list is. You want to do some.
No, I understand that. I understand that. So but you're saying find things of entity class person. So in this case, you're pre-specifying what the type of the response will be.
Yes.
Correct?
I mean, in a sense, the transformation from people born in cities to that entity class doesn't really need to talk to a database to happen. Because it's like just a transformation of you need to know the relation between the properties.
So long as you know the type relations.
Yeah.
But it might not be the case that, there may not be a uniform type to the entity value of some particular property.
Oh, yeah, that is
in
the case.
In your databases, there has to be a uniform type.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
Okay, but in general, in this formulation, there doesn't have to be a uniform type.
No.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying here. So now what?
So in general, for databases, we represent this type of reverse relations as entity classes because it's a lot more efficient in terms of speed and because you can chain it. And chaining is very powerful because most of the times you can avoid.
Are you basically making a pitch for why we should be documenting the Yeah, well, that's cool. That's pretty cool that worked. Okay. I don't know why this happened. Do we know what that is? That's probably a new bug in the version 12. Who is project managing here?
Andrea, I can report it.
Thanks. Okay. So what are you trying to argue here? You're trying to argue that when we're doing this for for databases that I don't even know how you would get this version, because do we have a thing like entities? Yes, we could get entities out of the database, right?
We do already. Because basically the entity becomes kind of a headdress around the foreign key.
Okay, well, fine. But I mean, so you're simply proposing that the primary thing we document is this entity class mechanism. Is that correct?
I mean, it depends. Basically, single entity would mean this is guaranteed to be a many-to-one relation. And so, I don't know, something like a person can only be part of one department in a company. And so if in the database it's coded as a foreign key, then you can't have multiple answers to that question.
Yeah.
Can be missing, but it can't be multiple things. On the other hand, all the things that are gotten out of the database or as reverse of foreign keys can in full generality be lists of things.
So what? I mean, the database is what it is. The only question is how we tell people to access it, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so the answer is you propose to document this way of accessing it and not document, or at least not emphasize, this way of accessing it. Is that correct?
It's not about what we document. It's basically if you scroll down, if you look at the workflow, basically I explain how we extract these things from database and turn them into user-friendly things. So this last how is relations current specified. Turns out that in the database, the way they are stored is by just saying that they have a to table, a from columns, and two columns.
What are we talking about here? What is the issue? What is the question? What is the issue?
The issue is how do these things get specified in the entity store in the end? So if you want to go from data which is just integers and strings, and you want to go to something that returns actual entities and entity classes as values, you need to be able to specify these things.
But I don't understand. The database has what it has in it. It has things pointing to foreign keys, for example. So are you saying that in the description of the entity store, we have to give metadata that describes what those foreign keys correspond to?
We don't have to, because the default creation will discover the foreign keys and create the most basic relations from them. But we need to document how they get specified automatically in case people want to add more, for example. So if you scroll down,
I'm really confused. Is this a proposed design change, or is it?
No, it's not a design change. It's that the first time I showed you this, you said you weren't happy with it. So I'm trying to motivate why we designed this way.
One question. If you scroll up a little bit, I don't understand how using entity classes helps a lot with the chaining, because it helps you go one level further with.
Not only, you can also apply queries to that class, Tony. And if it would be a list, then it means that you kind of leave the database world for good.
But the point is that there can be chained almost indefinitely.
If you want to.
But still, you get an array of deeper and deeper depths, and there's no way you can represent it.
No, it's only true if you think about this in the list paradigm. But for us, it's getting flattened. So if you think about this as entity class, then you chain transforms on those entity classes.
No, but you are right, and I say almost indefinitely, because if you follow multiple times one-to-many relations, you might get in trouble if you don't aggregate them. So, for example, in that case where I was comparing the mean to something else, it was because I needed to aggregate.
Hold on, can I run this?
No.
How would I run this?
I mean, the syntax is wrong, maybe, and because the syntax has not yet been updated. So.
Okay, but I mean, this particular thing. So this is a property, a value of a property, all chained, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that this would break at some point because they all return lists, and so you can chain them like that. Because lists don't have some values.
No, so I understand.
This will never work like this. That's why at the beginning we had thought to introduce entity property path. But so what I was saying to Tony is that if you look at that mean I'm using, because otherwise the cardinality of what you get there from on the left-hand side of the greater is different from the cardinality of what you get on the right-hand side, and this would fail. So sometimes you need to aggregate as well as branch.
I don't understand what the point is here. I don't understand what the. Okay, let's get to what is it? Is this some? Okay, what's this?
So now this SQL database object has a table person, and that table has some.
Getting fixed. This.
Yes, it is. We already met with Billy. It's just not yet in your build.
Okay.
Okay. So basically, the person table has some meta information attached to it. That is this foreign key constraints, and they have this pretty hard to read form, where basically you have two that point to person itself, and they are friend and enemy. And then you have one that points to nation. And the two columns are all called ID because they point to the primary key. And the primary key is called ID in all these tables. So we've condensed this information into basically the same syntax as the third argument of merged entity class, because that's what it is. It's a SQL join.
I completely don't understand what the point is here. Can we zoom out for a minute?
Sure.
Would you tell me what the point is, starting from the beginning?
Okay, the point is that we want to have properties that return entities also on databases.
I get it.
There is an auto-discovery mechanism, and we need to somehow document the syntax.
But wait a second. The auto-discovery says this thing is going to be to a foreign key. That foreign key points to some other. By the way, we have a weird echo here. That foreign key points to another database, right?
Another table
in the database, and you need to consider also the fact that each time you have a foreign key, you also have a reverse relation, and there is an automatic naming mechanism that we invented. But yeah, this is what we're talking about. There
okay, so the table to which the foreign key points,
yes,
is also associated with an entity with some registered entity type in the entity store. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what we're discovering. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that becomes the to type. It goes to an entity type.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. So fine.
So, for example, if you scroll down a little bit and you look at that entity store, you have a property that's not underlined that's called nation, the last one.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you have one that is underlined and has a little arrow that is nation relation. So nation is the native one, and that will return just a string. That's the ID of the nation. Nation relation actually returns an entity.
So hold on. So you're saying this thing points to, you're saying this thing is simply the string name in the nation table. Is that right? Whereas this is some kind of entity representation in the nation table. Is that correct?
Yes. Now, if you go into the nation table, so opening that other flipper there, you will see that there is also a reverse relation that is person from nation. Basically.
Okay, I don't care. I'm just trying to understand this right now. Okay, so this is a value, if I'm understanding correctly. This is, when you say types here, this is a value of one of these person fields. Is that right?
Yeah. What value of one of those properties? Yes.
Right. Okay. And so that type is called nation, and that nation type is actually really should be called nation name, I think.
No, but that's nation name is what you call nation name is a native name in the database. So
yes.
I've been trying as much as I can not to rename the things that are already in the database. So,
well, but it's not in the same database, right? It's in a different database.
No, it's in the same database.
Table.
No, Stephen, nation there is the name of a column in the same table. It turns out to be also the name.
Okay, fine. So it also happens to be the name of another database. Is that another table? Is that right?
Another table in the same database.
Okay, fine. But then that other table, so that's the column name, but this says types here, right? Is it a type or is it a column name?
No, if when it's not open, those are types. Nation, person, and transaction are the types. And then you open the flipper and each type has columns, or properties rather.
I'm sorry, is this a type or is this a column in the original database?
The top level flippers are types.
No, they're not. Wait a minute, the top level flippers. So okay.
Nation, person, and transaction are the
that
types.
Thing that says types colon is utterly confusing. Right? It should be up here.
That's the default of the. I mean, I can change it, but it's
no. But I mean, I don't understand what this is. So that's super confusing the way that looks. Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's a graphic design issue, Andrea. That's for you, please. Can you screenshot this?
Of how it should.
And I don't know what this means here. Is that why is that? What is that? That's just a version.
I mean, that is already changed. Don't even look at it.
Okay, fine. All right, okay. So that's a type. Okay. So this here is a column of the person table, right?
Yes.
What's this?
That's basically. I mean, the reason there is that is because the property extractor you could be renaming something, so it's not necessarily.
But what is that? What is that right hand side? What is that thing there?
It can be an entity function, it can be an entity property, or it can be, in the case of relational association.
Okay, so this here, so this is the pure column nation, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so this is something which is telling you for the entries in the column, if I'm not mistaken, something about what they map to, is that correct?
No, I mean, imagine you have a person entity. If you ask for the property nation, you would get a string. If you ask for the property nation relation, you get basically the same string, but dressed with an entity around.
I understand. That's what I was trying to say. Why does it not say that this is a string? Why is there nothing here that says that the type of this output for nation is a string?
We could add that. I mean, that information is currently only encoded in the SQL database object, and we don't bubble it up to the entity level.
Seems useful to me to know what it is. What this thing, this entity property, basically. What is the contents of the nation column here? I don't even know. Property type is saying what the property type of that is. So this is a column, right? Property extractor is the extractor you would use from this type here to get to an entry in that column. Is that correct?
No, not quite. The property extractor is basically, it's adding a level of indirection. So if you decide to call nation country, the property extractor would still say nation there, but the key in the flipper would say country. So this is a way in which you can rename the columns.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. Is the thing that I said correct?
No.
Okay, tell me why not.
Okay, because in this case, nation points to nation. We haven't done any renaming. This is the default constructor.
Yeah.
But if you were to rename nation to country, the property extractor would still say nation, but the name of the property would become.
What is this full thing? What is that thing there? What is it? What is that? Is that an entity property object?
Yes, It's an abuse of notation for entity property, really.
Then don't abuse it. Please don't abuse it. It's already confusing enough as it is.
But I don't have any other way to specify how to say the prefix otherwise.
What prefix? The entity type prefix?
Yes.
Okay, what is the entity type prefix here?
I mean, in this case, it's just...
What is the entity type prefix in this case?
In this case, it's just person, so it's trivial.
Well, it's not trivial. It's okay. So here's what I think. Whatever happens here, this display should make it clear that there is an entity type prefix and what that entity type prefix is. Am I making sense? And I don't think that this is the right thing to... This is using... That's nonsense. I mean, if I might say so. This is... In what sense is that a property type? Column.
That means that it's native. So it can be either column or relation or function. So it's either natively a column or it can be a relation or it can be something that is computed, so entity function.
So what are the other possibilities for that?
Column, relation, function.
Okay, that's not using the word type in the same sense that we use type.
Okay, what would you change it to?
I don't know, but it's not. It's super confusing because type is a different thing here. It's not an entity type type. Ricardo or Leonard or anybody, any other suggestions? This is clearly not a type, so it cannot be called a type.
Yeah, but we need some way to distinguish between different sorts of fields that we have here, because they have different origin in a sense, different nature.
I understand.
So some of them come from the original data.
I know what we just talked about. That we just talked about what they are, right? But we can't call that property type because that's a completely different thing, isn't it?
I mean, property type would be string in this case. So
yes,
I don't
that's right. That's what it should be. That's what it should be.
What about property kind?
Property origin.
That's much better. That's much better. Or property source. Property source, property. That property origin is a good start. Or property, what is it? It's how you compute that property.
Yeah, what kind of values we have right now? We have column, it can be also function, right?
Yeah.
It could also be property genesis or something like that.
Is it the same for also for relation? We got the same. So something like many to one or something is still inside the same key, property origin, or is it a different thing?
I think it's different. This just says that the column is either present originally or computed. Or...
So, but Stephen, if you click on person friend and you expand it, do we have a property type there as well? Okay.
What does relation mean?
Means that it's generated from the relations that are in the schema of this database. So it's a generated property of a special kind.
We've got to be clearer on what's going on here. So, look, if what this says, so first point is this thing, whatever it is, has got to be, let's say it's property origin. Okay. I'm thinking column
But are we sure we want origin with all the mathematical meaning of it?
I don't know, but type is not going to cut it. So we're
What
off.
about provenance?
And source is better.
What?
Source.
Well, actually, look, that will be a better thing to call it if we're really going to try and call it something where it explains what it is.
Well, that would be the extractor, really. The property value source.
Why is that the extractor?
Kind of, yes.
Why is that the extractor?
Because it's telling you what column to get it from.
No, I think the meaning that Stephen put into this was different. It was basically the origin of from where does it come from, not which column does it come from.
Right. I mean, very long, but this adding.
We could have property source type and property source instead of property extractor. So property source type would be column and property source would be nation.
I don't think it should be called property source. I think it should be called, this one should be called property source. And then what is it? Isn't it an extractor or what is that thing? This thing here, what do you use that for?
I mean, so if it's a function, that would be an entity function.
Well, what is it in this case with a relation? How do you
in that
use
case, it's the
association?
specification that I need to construct the relation. So it's.
How do you use this? How do you use this?
Okay, it's closely related to merged entity class.
How do you specifically use this? What function do you put it in?
We generate entity function from this spec.
Why don't you give the entity function?
Because the entity function we generate might be different in different contexts. So it's better to keep it, and this is actually simpler to reason about. Because in some cases, you might want to turn this into a subquery, in some cases into a join, but the specification is the same.
Look, what I would do here is this. I would have this thing be simply a thing called property source. And then I would have that be an association, which has all the detail you want.
Yeah, it's true that if it is
column, then I would say column name, etc.
It's true that if it is a string, we can say there is a column. If it is a database function, of course, it's created. And if it is an association, it's the full thing.
Yeah, but that's what we do. No, wait a second.
No. I'm suggesting that you get rid of this. You have a single thing here called property source.
Mm-hmm.
That property source is an association which contains all the detail you want.
Stephen, you're not solving the problem. You're just pushing it one level down.
No, I am solving the problem.
That is already an association. The problem is, what are the keys of that association called?
Which association?
That thing that you see when you open the flipper in the input form is already an association.
Okay.
And it has keys, property type, property.
All right. So then property source type column, and then the keys that you give here will be different depending on what that property source type was. Because property extractor makes no sense. Makes no sense. This thing is different in different cases. It means a different thing depending on what the property source type was.
Yes.
So that's bad. Right? That just name it whatever it's called. Like in this case, it would be column name.
Oh, by the way, property type is not present in the association. I infer it from what's in the property extractor.
I don't care. It doesn't matter. I mean, it will be, so then it will be column name. In this case, where it's a column, it would give column name. Where it's something else, it gives another thing. Get what I'm saying? So in other words, it's not a fixed association there.
Okay. But still, what are the keys of this association in different cases?
Well, I don't know. You have to tell me. But I mean, I think you could break this one apart. Right?
Okay.
One way would be to just say that there are just two types of columns. One is native type and the other is non-native type. And for non-native types, you can have extra things.
That seems reasonable
I would
to me.
keep the distinction between relation and...
Yeah, but you can keep that distinction within non-native types.
Well, I don't know whether it matters. So you're saying column, function, what's the other one? Relation. But why don't we give these names? Look, why don't we try giving these property source type, native column? What's this? What do we call the function thing in the case of an entity store? It's called a computed property, isn't it? Is that right?
You can have a default function property.
Okay, so what will we call the function then? Okay, what about this one? Is this one foreign key or what? What is that one? What is relation? What does it mean? Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
I mean, who are you asking the question to?
Any of you. I don't know, you.
I mean, relations don't really exist.
Okay, so what is this correctly called? What should it be called? Right, so I'm suggesting if it's native column, then in the case of native column, right? Wait. Then native column has a column name property. If it is function, then what does it have? What's the other thing that's in there? If it's a function.
Oh, it has the function itself. It's an entity function. Doesn't need anything else.
Okay. So then it's just function. Okay. That's the name of those are string names for the property source type.
Yeah, but the property source type, I don't store it.
I don't care whether you store it or don't store it. It doesn't make any difference. So these things, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Right? So you can put this into an association and you look at the association and you decide from that association what you put for the property source type. Doesn't make any difference how you get it. Make sense?
Okay. By the way, the native column, the column name might not be enough.
Okay, well, what do you want to do there?
So the problem is that
just tell me what other key you need in addition.
Let me explain. So the problem is that a type can be a computed type.
Okay.
So it could be, you could register entity extended entity class of something. In that case, it would not be enough to say just the column name. You also need the prefix part of the entity property. So it really works like an entity property. That's why I use an entity property.
But it isn't an entity property, is it?
It is an entity property.
Please don't use it if it isn't one. Just look, if you insist on doing that, say have a thing called column prefix or something, and then column name.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk about relation for a minute, please. So I have no idea what this means.
That thing is the same thing as the join condition. So it's the same thing.
What is it? The word to type. How does that get used?
So the to type is what you will get in the first argument of the entity or entity class.
Okay, I don't think it's a very good name for it. Can we say what it really is, please?
It's an entity type that you're pointing to.
Okay, so let's call it destination entity type. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, what's this next thing?
The other thing is effectively the third argument of merged entity class. So it is a condition because it can be a Boolean entity function.
So, well, why don't we call it merging condition? I don't think that's the right thing, but some qualifier for condition. What kind of a condition is it? It's not really a condition, is it? It's a thing that is. Well, you tell me. And what's this ID thing here?
So ID is the column in the right, so in the destination type that you're pointing to. And friend is in the from type, the source type.
Okay.
So person.
Okay.
And this is both person.
Okay.
So
why don't we call it something instead of calling it condition? That's the mapping from entity types. That's basically the entity type mapping. Is that right?
So basically the friend goes to ID becomes entity function xy, x friend equal x y ID, just like in merged entity class. So in its most general form, it's a function.
Okay, well then give it as a function if it needs to be a function. I mean, I don't understand. You can give that. Okay, look, if this is a mapping, give it as a mapping. If it's something which is a function, so say, maybe entity type mapping function. Does that make sense?
Okay.
If it's just the mapping, give the mapping. Don't try and shoehorn two different things together. See what I'm saying?
Okay.
And why is this in a list here?
Because in principle, there could be more.
Okay, fine.
Just like in join across.
Okay, so should it be called mappings plural?
No, I think a mapping can be a list of rules.
Okay. All right. So does this make sense to you?
This is stuff that you want in the output form or also in the input form?
I would think in the input form. I would think that's the structure that you put in here. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to make this so it isn't utterly incomprehensible. And I don't know what this nation-relation is supposed to be. That's putting the name of what's going on here. So, gosh, this
I mean, I can't call it nation because nation is already.
I know, but what is this from and to thing here?
From and to is the property you derive that from. So there is an original from and to, and you know that there are foreign keys. And
I don't understand. You're repeating stuff that's in the information that's given here in the name. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is this a name that's a real name, or is this a name that's just for display?
No, this is a real name. When you want to get it out, you use that.
With a dash in it?
You can put something else, but in general, they will be lowercase. So.
Well, this is an appended name, appended to. I'm just totally confused. This is not. I can't be helpful to you here. I mean, I don't understand enough about this stuff. I don't understand what this is at all. I have no idea what this is.
So that one is if you have a person friend. So in this case, since friend points to person itself, then you have the friend, and you have the people you're a friend of.
So this is a convention that you're doing this dash relation thing, or this is something that's being generated?
This is a convention that I made up.
Okay. All right. Fine. Okay, that's fine. All right. Well, okay, fair enough.
I mean, I could change relation to entity or entity class, but then I would need to know whether it's going to be an entity or an entity class. So you could say.
What do other people think? Relation is the wrong name. This is supposed to tell you that this is nation as an entity, right?
Yes.
Maybe nation entity then is better. Yeah.
Okay, but I don't understand person dash enemy. What's that supposed to mean?
So you have a property enemy, and that's just going to be a string or an integer in this case, I think. And so that's it's the person entity valued version of enemy foreign key.
Person entity valued. I don't understand that.
So, okay, if you just get an enemy out, you'll get an integer.
Okay, so this is the wrong way around. So the person dash, look, what you've got is, you've got person dash enemy, right? Means should really be enemy as person in some sense, right? Whereas in your other one, your nation relation should be nation.
That should be nation as nation.
Okay, but then it's entity, like that.
But why isn't enemy entity then?
Well, maybe it is. Is that really what that is there? Why does it have to say person?
Because that's the entity's type. I mean,
okay, do you need to know the entity type at this stage?
I mean, if you look at
wait. Do you need to know the entity type?
I think it's helpful, and it's the convention we're following. So that's, if there is no collision, that's the default. I would just call it person. But since person has a bunch of collisions, I cannot call it person. So in the case
I don't think that's right. I think you should just call it entity here.
But in the case, in the case of country, for example, city. City has a property that is just called country, because it's obvious that the city can only have one foreign key.
Yes, I know.
Country.
I think one way you are adding the name of the type, that might be okay to do. Another way would be to just append entity like Stephen is suggesting. So if you have like a column that is called nation, and then you have nation-entity in the very simple case. Now we need to fix the case where there are multiple columns referring to the same guy, and that at least here will be fixed as well, because here you have like from and to.
Wait a second. This is a very pathological case, because we have other examples in which the name of the property, for example, let's say you have a title type, and in the title type you will have title ID, that's its own primary key, and when you have a foreign key to author, that's just going to be called author ID. And so in that case, you can just call it author when you have an author value.
You cannot just make everyone happy.
I think that the case, that this is...
Okay, listen. Let me just suggest this as the end result, okay? That you've got either the thing that's just nation, which is the naked version of what's in the database, right? Strings, for example. Right?
Yeah, so nation, you will keep it as it is. Yeah.
Right. Now, if you really want to get it as a foreign, indirecting through this foreign key to another table, then call it -entity.
Yeah, but
right.
Can you?
That would be easy.
I have to go. So yeah, go ahead. But
yeah, if you look at the nation, the nation table is much less pathological, because the nation table doesn't have foreign keys, so it has only reverse relations. In that case, I can just say person. The nation has a relation to person, and I can call it person, just like in city, I call the relation to country.
No, you've got an underline there, right? That underline represents something special. It's got to have an actual name.
Yeah,
right?
Also what this name is not reflecting, Carlo, is that on the way back, it's returning really a list of things. And I really think the name should reflect that.
So we should say
person set or person entity list or transaction entity list or something.
No, it's an entity class, not an entity list.
Entity class then, but maybe we should reflect the fact that the reverse relation is returning a list, not really a single entity.
I can do that.
Okay, so then it would be person entity class there. So would all of these then be nation entity class? Is that right?
No, so from person to nation, it's a foreign key, so it's an entity, not an entity class. And it's from nation to person that it's one to many, and so it has to be an entity class.
So which one? So this nation dash entity thing, what should that be? Is it an entity class?
No, a nation dash entity is correct. It's a person from nation that is different.
Okay, so fine. So then one is entity and the other is entity class. Makes sense.
And what about when you need to specify what key you're using, like friend, enemy? Is that
what key you're using where?
So person has two foreign keys to itself. So would that be enemy person entity and friend person entity?
I'm totally confused. You're saying that you have to potentially say what the table that you're going to is. So the format is the native column name dash the table name, destination table name, dash the dressing. Is that right?
Yeah. So right now, if there is only one that is going to the table, I omit the native column name, because I only use that to disambiguate. So, for example, otherwise it would be nation entity, but there's only one.
All right. Okay.
So the question is whether I should say friend person entity and enemy person entity or not.
I would use the column name rather than the table name.
There isn't always a column name.
Yeah, it's probably not always right, but in any case, it's not always going to be right.
Okay, but this is a convention. So what are you suggesting, Ricardo?
I think that in most cases, people will use the column name as the name of the table. Like, it's obvious that if you have a table that is country, probably the column you're using to refer to this table is always country. But if you're using a different name, probably it's because this name means something. So I would use in the reverse relation the column name instead of the table name as.
All right. So you're saying omit the table name.
I would omit the table name, yes, and not the column name. But again, those are my 5 cents.
Yeah, okay, but I mean, and if for disambiguation you need to give the table name, then give it.
Well, I still think that in simple cases, the table name is way more informative than.
Okay, you guys go figure this out. Okay.
Okay.
I have to go to another meeting.
Okay.
All right. So, is there anything else?
Not in this, but we need to start documentation.
Well, I'm not working on that. You guys need to work on that. Who's going to help you with that?
I mean, I already started the stubs. I thought you wanted to go through at least the usage messages.
I will want to go through them all, yes, but I think you should go through them with somebody else first.
Okay.
Who have you guys worked with in the past for documentation? Have you done a bunch yourself? I can't even remember.
Yeah, we did all the documentation for interpreter, for function.
Oh yeah. You know how to do this, Carlo. You know how to.
Yeah, I did it already this morning. So
yeah, most of the time we were doing it with you, but obviously
the usage messages. Then the examples we do ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so get candidate usage messages. Okay, that have the right format and so. Okay, great. Okay. Well, set up another meeting for that. It's going to be difficult in terms of timing, but go ahead and try and get something set up. Okay. All right. For those on the live stream, I think we have another meeting about synthetic geometry that's just coming up. Okay. See you all soon.